over great Jehovah is I am weak without mighty. Hold me without powerful hand. I am weak, but I Almighty. Oh, yeah, without power, bread of heaven, bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Bread of heaven. Come on, y'all can do better than that. Out of all the hell you done been through all week long, the phone calls you done had, the hard times you done had, I know grandma will say this, strong deliverer, he's my strength, my soul and shield, strong. Come on, y'all can do better than that. Come on, is it when you look back over your life and you see all the hell you done been through, it ain't nobody but God on your side. Is there anybody in this place that know that God is still alive? Come on, I said, do anybody know that God is still alive? And he's a man that don't lie. I need somebody to send him because when I look back over my life, could have been dead sleeping in my grave, but I thank God. Woo! That's enough to shout right there. I said, I thank God. Millions didn't make it, but I say, I thank God that I was one of the ones who did. I call your attention to the Gospel of Luke. I call your attention to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 7, and we will commence reading through verse 11 through 16. When you are yet there, please say amen. Luke chapter 7, verse 11 through 16. And when it came to pass, the day after he went into a city called Nain, and many of his disciples went with him, and much people. Now when he came into the gate of the city, behold, there was a dead man carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. Much people of the city went with her, and when the Lord saw her, he had compassion on her, and said unto her, weep not. And he came and touched her the beard, and they that was burying him stood still. And he said, young man, I say to you, arise. And he that was dead sat up and began to speak. and he delivered him back to his mother. And there came a fear all over the there was a fear all over. Glorify God, saying, a great prophet has risen up amongst us, and that God has visited his people. And this spread out through the city of Judea and surrounding areas. You may be seated in the presence of the Lord. Just for a moment, my brothers and my sisters, I would like to talk to you from a familiar subject. They thought it was over. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, they thought it was over. But now is the time to speak life over my situation. To my brothers and my sisters, there is a time to live and there is a time to die. There is a time to give and there's a time to fly. There's a time to laugh and there is a time to cry. There's a time to take and there's a time to lie. There's a time to save even though we don't really know the reason why, but thanks God because he knows the reason why. Even though they thought it was over, but now in Luke chapter 7, I believe one of the main reasons that God placed this story in the Bible to encourage us to start speaking life over our situations. My brothers and my sisters, in this text, we are dealing with a situation where a mother is preparing herself to bury her only son. Where in the city of Nan, the name was a village that was in the middle of Israel, located at the lower part of Galilee. Nain was the main name meaning was lovely, but now we are dealing with a situation in this story where a mother not just only have to bury her only son, but she has to deal with death twice. First, she had to bury her husband. Now, if we look back inside of the text, when you look back in the days where they was at, when they was considered as a widow, when they didn't have nobody else left for to help them, they either had to become a prostitute or they had to do manly work. But one of the questions that came to my mind, what do you do when death comes knocking at your front door? My brothers and my sisters, number one, you must have to learn how to face death like you was a madman. In other words, what I'm trying to get you to understand is when death comes knocking at your front door, there is no way that you can hide, but you have to learn how to stay 10 toes down. Because no matter where you are in life, God is going to come and find you. That's why you have to be careful who you allow inside of your situation. Because everybody that comes around your situation ain't always built for your situation. Because some people will bring you joy within your situation. Some people will bring trouble within your situation. But sometimes you have to understand, once I start to speak over my situation will one day help my family. What do you mean, Trey? My situation will help me become more wealthy. My situation will help me become stronger in faith dealing with God. My situation will help my children one day. My situation will help my mother, not just my family, but sometimes your situation may be connected to somebody that needs some little help. But do y'all mind if I really talk to y'all this morning? Because parents, you have to be mindful how you spoke to your children a long time ago. Because you got to understand that prophesied that you spoke on their life, called them bad 24/7. Now you are regretting that same prophecy. What do you mean, Trey? Nowadays, you the same child you call bad is out here killing folks. The same child that you call bad is out here doing things that they shouldn't be doing. But you got to realize that same word that you spoke on their life will live today. That's why you got to understand that there is still power inside the tongue. Because you got to understand, yeah, there is power inside the tongue, but how do I go through things in life when I speak on things? Because everything that you speak on ain't always true. Because sometimes you find yourself in somebody else's situation when you ain't got no business in their situation because you got hell going on in your own home. So how can you find a balance between your situation and their situation? Baby, I come to let you know that you're going to lose yourself, not just lose yourself, but you're going to hurt yourself more than you're hurting somebody else. Because you're trying to keep up with everybody and everybody else. You can't keep up with Pookie because Pookie already got his stuff situated. Pookie ain't worried about you. That's why you have to be mindful that in this season that I'm about to enter into, I can't worry about what other folks got going. I need to focus on myself. Because if I focus on myself, I will be successful. I will have everything I need. Because if I'm too busy worried about what you got going on, I'm going to lose myself in the middle of the process. Look at your neighbor and say, there is a process. There's a process for everything. When you wake up in the morning, that's part of your process. When you brush your teeth in the morning, that's part of your process. When you face demons every day in life, that's part of your process. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I'm about to get ready to step into my season. But the only way I can step into my season if I release some things. Is there anybody in here that needs to release some things? You've been going through some stuff all year long, but now it's the time. God told me to tell you, my brothers and my sisters today, that you have to let it go. Why you got to let it go? Because everything that you say has a reason behind it. My brothers and my sisters, there is a reason and a purpose on your life. Nobody is out here just floating. Even though it makes take you a little time, you gotta understand that you can't rush God's process. Because if you find yourself trying to rush God's process, guess what God's gonna do? He's gonna sit back and watch you fall. And then once you actually realize what he's doing, then baby, here he come. I'm gonna pick you up, and then he gonna carry you along with him. Is there anybody that's willing to trust God in the middle of the process? Even though your process might seem hard, even though your process might seem disgraceful, but I come to let you know, baby, that God is about to answer your prayers. Why is he about to answer his prayer? Because now in the text, this woman is about to head to the cemetery. She's on her way to the cemetery to bury her only son. How would you feel if you had to bury someone that's close to you? She had to bury her only son, but in the process of her burying her only son, there was a crowd that was laughing. And there on the other side, there was a crowd that was crying. With her, there was a crowd that was crying. She had to hire professional mourners. And if y'all didn't know today, we still hire sometimes professional mourners. But on Jesus' side, they was laughing. The reason why they was laughing is because they already knew what God can do. Is there anybody in here know that what God can do? I come to let you know what he did for others, he'll do the same thing for you. Baby, what in the middle of her process, God had to let her know that even though you are crying, I am about to show you something that you ain't never seen before. Because as she was on her way to the cemetery, guess who shows up? God. And when he shows up, he walks up and touched the beard. And then the boy begins to what? Talk. But if God woke you up out of something that you're supposed to be eternal, how would you feel? If God gave me another chance at life, how would you feel? The first thing I would say is thank you, Lord. The reason why, because he didn't have to wake me back up. He could have left me there dead, sleeping in an old chilly grave, but he allowed me to stand up one more time. Is there anybody in this place that know that God will still come to your rescue when you still need him? Even though it seemed like it's hard, God will still come in the middle of your process and show you that he is bigger than all things. I come to let you know that God sits in a class all by himself. Yeah, death thought he had you, but guess what? He couldn't fight you no more. Why? Because God knocked some demons off your back. And when God knocks some demons off your back, some people going to have to remove themselves from around you. Because you got to understand, everybody can't handle your process, not just your process. Everybody ain't meant to walk on the same road you're walking on 24/7. Yeah, the same people that started out with you in high school, yeah, they might start with you in college, but they'll no longer be with you. The same people that started on the job ain't going to be on the job too much longer. Why? Because they ain't built like you are built. That's why the Bible say death and life is two different things. That's why you got to understand. That's why you got to understand. There will sometimes you in your situation, God is going to put joy in your situation, and then at the same time, he's going to put trouble in your situation. Why? Because you got to understand, when you fall off with one, something got to pick you back up. That's why I understand when I'm in trouble, I know there's some joy gonna come in somewhere. I don't know about you, but I'm so glad that trouble don't last always. Is there anybody in here that know that trouble won't last always? The Bible said we've been made endure for a night, but joy. Come on, I don't know about you, but last time I checked, if it had not been for the Lord on my side, I could have lost my mind a long time ago. Millions didn't make it, but I thank God that I was one of the ones who did. I work in this industry. I see people every single day. People really are not built for some of this stuff that's going on. Why do we feel so much pain in the middle of our process? The reason why God give us so much pain to see is we really built for the process. Baby, what I come to let you know is in the next season of your life, God is about to put you inside of a place where you ain't meant to be at. In other words, what I'm saying is God is going to make you uncomfortable to where you can realize who he really is. In other words, sometimes God got to put you in some uncomfortable situations to let you know that he is still God. Because sometimes we forget who he is. Last time I checked, he's Adam's Redeemer. He's the bright in the morning. So he's the lily of the valley. He's my food when I'm hungry. He's the water when I'm thirsty. Last time I think his name is what? Anybody know and have anybody tried them? Because last time I checked, I tried them early in the morning and I tried them late in the midnight hour. And last time I checked, he is still able. How many of y'all know that God is still able? I said, how many of y'all know that God is still able? He's able when your money looks funny. He's able when friends lie on you. He's able when you find yourself crying night and all night long. How many know that God is still able? I don't know about you, but one day, by and by, when the morning comes, one day, the funeral director has to be direct. One day, the embalmer has to be embalmed. One day, the pastor has to be preached over. One day, the deacon will have to be preached over. I don't know about you, but I'm so glad that trouble don't last always. Last time I checked, he said he may not come when you want him to come. But baby, is there anybody that know that he will come on time? All I need is two wings. Grandma said one wing to veil my feet. I said, if I had two wings, all I need one wing to veil my face. If I had two wings, y'all, I will fly on up out of here, y'all. And the world can't do me no harm. I'm sorry, y'all, but I got to get on up out of here. See you later, alligator. After a while, crocodile. This thing been good, y'all. But if you don't know me, like you used to. I come to let you know that God is about to show up in the middle of your situation. And when I say God is about to show up, He's not going to show up how you expect Him to show up. Last time I checked, y'all, He's my friend. When friends close doors in my face, He's my brother, y'all. When I'm brotherless, y'all. He's my father when I'm fatherless, y'all. He's my friend. When friends ain't nowhere to be found, he's my mother, y'all. When mother ain't nowhere to be found, he's everything. How many of y'all know that God is still good? I said, how many of y'all know he's good? I said, grab your neighbor. I said, grab your neighbor by the hand and say, neighbor. I said, say, neighbor. I said, say, neighbor. It's my time to show that God is still alive. Is anybody in this place that know that God is still alive? If he did it for her, how many of y'all know that he will do the same thing for you? I don't know about you, but he died. I said he died. I said he died. How many of y'all know he died? I said he died to the moon refused to shine. He died until the centurion soldier said, surely. I said, surely. I said, surely. I said, surely. You must be, you got to be the son of the living God. But y'all, it didn't stop right there. He died, y'all, but he rose again. I said he rose again. How many of y'all happy, glad that he rose again? And when he rose, he rose with all power. I say power, y'all, to heal the sick, y'all. Power to raise the dead. Power, y'all, to let us know that when we are in trouble, all we got to do is go down and call on his name. Because in the text, y'all, she was crying all day and all night long. But look what happened, y'all. God showed up in the middle of her situation. How many of y'all know that God will? I said, how many of y'all know that God will show up in your situation? And when he show up in your situation, he will act a fool. How many of y'all is willing to trust God with your life? I said, how many of y'all? I said, how many of y'all is willing to trust God? Because when you trust God, that's when things start to happen. Money start to come, food start to come, people start to leave. Because when God shows up, he has to remove some people out of your circle for you to get where you need to be. Because in the text, y'all, she was crying. I just can't believe that part right there. She was crying, y'all, that she lost her only son. How would you feel, y'all? If you had to lay your only son to rest? She lost her son, y'all. She lost her husband too. But at the end of the day, when God shows up, I said, when God shows up, He will turn your bad day into a good day. Anybody know He will? I say, anybody know He will? I say, anybody know He will? I know He's all right. How do you know He's all right? He walks with me late in the midnight hour. He talks with me early in the morning. He tells me that I'm his all. I know he's all right. I know he's all. I know he's all right. They thought it was over, y'all, but the battle was not over until God said so. And last time I checked, God didn't write to die. So the third it is that the situation, it was not over because God did not say it was over. So that's why in life, y'all, you got to remember that your situation is not over until God says so. What a word. What a word. The doors of the church is open.